Epic Reddit drama, the 20-year interest on a high school debt. They say living well is the best revenge. I say that's a lie told by people too weak to actually strike back. Living well is just the prerequisite. True revenge. True revenge is a slow-burn architectural project. It's building a pedestal for your enemy, helping them climb it, and then, only when they are high enough for the fall to be fatal, pulling the rug. My name is Mark. To Jason White, I was just the puddle. A kid he stepped on to keep his expensive sneakers clean. But Jason forgot one thing about puddles: if you leave them in the dark long enough, they turn into ice. And ice is very, very slippery. Chapter 1, The Hierarchy of Dirt, 1998 to 2002. I wasn't just poor, I was visible poor. You know the kind. The kids whose clothes always smelled slightly of damp basement because the dryer at the laundromat was too expensive. I had the thick, Coke bottle glasses that magnified my eyes to a comedic degree, and a stutter that acted like a shark in the water for every bully in a 5-mile radius. Then there was Jason White. Jason was the crown prince of our town. His father owned White Structural and Development, the company that basically built every overpriced McMansion in the county. Jason had the jawline of a superhero and the soul of a landlord. To the teachers, he was the star quarterback. To me, he was a nightmare that started at 8 a.m. every Monday, the incidents, the locker ritual. Every Tuesday, Jason and his lieutenants would find my locker. They didn't just break the lock, they would pour a gallon of chocolate milk through the vents. I spent 4 years of my life peeling apart damp, fermented pages of biology textbooks. The mud-eating video, this was 2001. Early digital cameras were a luxury. Jason's dad bought him one. He cornered me behind the gym and told me if I didn't eat a handful of worm-ridden mulch, he'd tell the principal I was the one who spray-painted the cafeteria. I did it. He filmed it. He burned it onto CDs and distributed them like underground mixtapes. Reddit sidebar, voiceover OP, original poster, here. Looking back at these notes, I realized I wasn't just sad. I was documenting. I still have those CDs. I kept them in a shoebox for 20 years like a holy relic of hate. Chapter 2, The Night of the Prank. The breaking point happened during our junior prom. I had finally gathered the courage to ask a girl from my art class, Sarah. She said yes. For 1 week, I felt human. I spent my entire savings, money I earned scrubbing floors at the local diner, on a rented tuxedo. When we got to the dance, the music stopped. Jason was on the stage. Hey, look everyone. The puddle found a suit. As we walked to the center of the floor, a bucket of industrial-grade lubricant mixed with glitter and, I'm not joking, rotten fish guts dropped from the rafters. It wasn't like the movie Carrie. It was worse. It was sticky, it smelled like death, and the glitter ensured that I couldn't get it out of my skin for weeks. The worst part wasn't the smell. It was Sarah. She wasn't a victim, she was in on it. She stepped back, laughed, and took a photo with a disposable camera. I walked home. 3 miles. In the rain. Smelling like a dumpster. My mother cried when she saw me. Not for the suit, but because she knew she couldn't protect me from the world. That night, I didn't cry. I sat at my desk and wrote a list. It wasn't a to-do list. It was a to-undo list. Chapter 3, The Metamorphosis, The Long Gap. I left town the day after graduation. I didn't go to the ceremony. I took a Greyhound bus to a city 3 states away. I worked 3 jobs while getting my degree in corporate law and forensic accounting. Why? Because I knew Jason's father. I knew the Whites weren't just rich, they were greedy. And greedy people always leave a paper trail. I spent my 20s becoming a ghost. Laser eye surgery, no more the puddle eyes. The gym, 6 days a week. I didn't want to be big, I wanted to look like the kind of man who belongs in a boardroom. The name, I legally changed my last name to my mother's maiden name. I became Mark Vance. I spent every spare hour researching White Structural and Development. I learned their vendors. I learned their tax loopholes. I learned that Jason had taken over as CEO after his father's early retirement, which I suspected was actually a quiet settlement over a bridge collapse that was hushed up. Jason was thriving. He was married to a minor Instagram influencer. He had a 5-bedroom house. He was the man of the year in our old hometown. He thought he had won. He thought the puddle had evaporated. He had no idea I was about to become his new lead consultant for a high-stakes merger. 20 years. That's 7,305 days of calculating. I stood in the lobby of White Structural and Development, adjusting my $3,000 charcoal suit. The glass towers of the city reflected a man that the puddle wouldn't have recognized. The glasses were gone, replaced by a sharp, predatory gaze. The stutter had been beaten out of me by hundreds of hours of debate clubs and corporate litigation. I wasn't just Mark Vance now. I was a senior restructuring consultant from Blackwood and Associates. And Jason White, he was in trouble. Big trouble. A bridge project in the North County had developed structural inconsistencies, a polite way of saying the concrete was cheap and the paperwork was forged. The company was bleeding money, and the board of directors was screaming for a savior. I had spent 3 years making sure I was the only savior available. Chapter 5, The Meeting. The mahogany doors opened. There. He was. Jason hadn't changed much. He was thicker around the middle, his hair thinning at the temples, but he still carried that same aura of unearned arrogance. He was leaning back in a leather chair, tossing a gold-plated football in the air. Vance? From Blackwood? Jason didn't even stand up. He just pointed at a chair. Sit. My assistant says you're the guy who can make the EPA and the auditors disappear. I like that. I like guys who make problems go away. I sat. I looked him dead in the eyes. For a split second, I wondered if he'd see it. The way my jaw tightened. The scar on my left temple from where he'd pushed me into a brick wall in the 10th grade. But he didn't. To him, I was just another tool. A high-priced suit he could buy to clean up his mess. Mr. White, I said, my voice smooth as silk. I'm not here to make problems disappear. I'm here to make sure they never come back. But to do that, I need total access. Every ledger. Every private server. Every off-the-books agreement your father signed since 1995. Jason laughed. That same, barking laugh that used to echo in the school hallways. Kid, you've got balls. I like that. You have my permission. Just save my company, and I'll make you a very rich man. I smiled. It was the first time I'd smiled in his presence since the 8th grade. Oh, Jason. I'm going to make sure we both get exactly what we deserve. Chapter 6, The Paper Trail of Blood. The next 6 months were a blur of late nights and cold coffee. While Jason was out playing golf or posting hustle culture quotes on LinkedIn, I was digging through the digital graves of his family's empire. I found it. It wasn't just cheap concrete. It was a systematic fraud reaching back 20 years. They had been bribing safety inspectors using a shell company called JSW Holdings. And the kicker? The shell company was registered in the name of Jason's wife. I didn't call the police. Not yet. Instead, I started optimizing the company. I convinced Jason to sell off the safe assets to cover the debt, while secretly moving the liability-heavy contracts into his personal name. I was building a cage, and Jason was helping me weld the bars shut, thinking I was building him a fortress. Every morning, he'd slap me on the back. Good work, Vance. You're a lifesaver. Every morning, I'd nod and think, this is for the chocolate milk in my locker, Jason.